With Erling Haaland having already scored 10 goals this season, it got me thinking about who are the best strikers behind him. So today we're going to be ranking every club's Premier League striker and putting them into a tier list. And to start us off, we're going to go with Adam Armstrong for Southampton, who in my opinion is arguably one of the worst strikers in the Premier League, and was a bit of a toss-up between him and Cameron Archer. But I thought since Archer's only just joined the club, yes, he's made the last two starts, but Armstrong did start the first three games of the season before that. So I thought I'll give the nod to Armstrong. Not only that, just because he's been at the club longer, last season he did really well in the Championship, getting 24 goals and 13 assists. So I thought that was absolutely phenomenal and definitely deserves to put him ahead of Archer. But the issue for me really is that I don't think he can quite do it in the Premier League. The last two seasons he has been in the Premier League with Southampton, he's only scored 2 goals in those 2 campaigns. And so for me, I don't necessarily think he's a Premier League striker. I think Southampton probably should have got better than him over the summer window, and I think they might be in a little bit of trouble. So to start us off, I think Adam Armstrong is quite comfortably one of the worst strikers in the Premier League if you think about all the players involved. So for me, he has to be down in the 17th to 20th place. And for our next player, let's go for Mikel Antonio at West Ham. And in my opinion, Mikel Antonio done a fantastic job for the Hammers. And in my opinion, probably a West Ham legend. West Ham fans, let me know in the comments below if you agree with that or not. But I just think that it's gotten to the point now where they're relying on him a little bit too much. They're bored of Nicolas Jackson for a big fee. And you're probably hoping for him to become the number 1 striker. But at the start of the season, Antonio started for the first 4 games. And I just think that with Fogel's injury as well, despite the fact that you probably want him to start because you've seen the quality that he can produce in the Bundesliga and you've seen the potential in him, I think Antonio is still at the moment the first choice striker for the Hammers, and that's something that definitely needs to be moved on. Because I do think he is starting to miss his sharpness in front of goal. So far this season, no goals, no assists, and last season he only got 7 goals and 2 assists, and it was a bit of a whirlwind last 6 to 7 months. It was very poor for West Ham, not only just Antonio but the whole squad in general. But I think it's one where if it was a couple years ago, we'd probably be saying that he's quite an underrated striker, might be looking at in the middle, maybe even towards the upper sections. But I think for where Antonio is right here, right now, I think he's going to be down the bottom. So I'm going to put Antonio just 1 tier below in 13 to 16 for now, but that'll all change later on. Next up, let's talk about Everton and let's talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I feel sorry for Calvert-Lewin because he's a player who's had his career curtailed by injuries. If you think about 3 seasons ago, he ended up missing 34 games in all competitions. 2 seasons ago, it was 29 games in all competitions. And last season, it was a little bit better, only just 6 games, which did mean that he got 8 goals and 3 assists. And so far this season, he's already got 2 goals and 1 assist. And I think it's actually been a little bit unfortunate in the fact that he maybe could have deserved or maybe should have got a goal or an assist more this season. However, last year, come back on that injury, he was one of the players who had the highest chances of underperforming his XG. I think that's something that he definitely needs to be working on to improve because he is in the peak years of his career and those injuries have definitely hampered him a lot. There's one point where we're looking at him even in the England squad as well and thinking about him being a striker behind Harry Kane. But I am looking at this list and I'm looking at the players in front of me who we've got to come next, and I do think that while I think he's really good for what Everton need right now, I do think that compared to some of the other Premier League strikers that, he is down the bottom end. So I will put him alongside Mikel Antonio. I put him ahead of Mikel Antonio, I would say. I do think that right now that he is a better Premier League striker than Antonio, even though I think Antonio a few years ago was competing with him very well. But I think for me, I think that's probably a good place for Calvert-Lewin. Right, next let's talk about someone who's maybe a little bit higher up in the tier list. Let's go for Rasmus Hojlund of Manchester United. And I think Hojlund hasn't had it easy at Manchester United. He only really had a good half a season, 3/4 of a season at Atalanta before he joined the Red Devils. And not only that, when he joined, he was expected to be the main man for them because Anthony Martial was essentially just made out of glass. He was never fit, so Hojlund had to start the predominant of minutes. I do think that did suffer him a little bit because when he was out of form, there was no replacement to come in to take his place to give him a little bit of respite. And so I think that last year, when he did get 16 goals and 2 assists, I think that was really good for someone who is new to the Premier League, new to English football. And in his first season at such a young age, I think that was really good. And so far this season, he's only played 25 minutes in all competitions. He had some injury issues as well. I think Joshua Zirkzee coming in is a different option. I don't think Zirkzee is probably a prolific goal scorer. I think Hojlund is definitely going to be the main number 9 for Man United. I wonder if there's going to be one where in big games, maybe you go for Zirkzee for that more defensive solidarity and link-up play to really get involved with wide players who are going to help on the counter-attack. And maybe against a team lower down the table, you maybe play Hojlund. You want your number 9, a focal figure, someone who's going to be in between the sticks and score you a goal. So I think for me, the main man on the striker is still definitely Rasmus Hojlund, even though I think Zirkzee have done a decent job so far. But where is he going to be in this tier list? I definitely think he's going to be in the upper echelons of it. And at such a young age, already having the experience that he's had in Italy and England, I think he's only going to get better. And for now, I'm going to leave him in that category between 5 and 8. And next up, let's go for Jean-Philippe Mateta, who is someone who I really struggle with in trying to place him in this tier list. Because if I'm being honest, prior to last season, my impression of Mateta wasn't that high. I thought actually that maybe it was an area which Crystal Palace needed to strengthen, and maybe Mateta and Edouard weren't really good enough. But last season, he just absolutely exploded. 19 goals and 5 assists in all competitions. And it really maybe pay attention to him and made me go, oh, okay, maybe he's better than I thought. And he also went away with France at the Olympics, being the starting striker, got a silver medal in that as well, did really well, really showed to the world that, he's a very good striker who at 27 years of age is in the prime years of his career and maybe even has levels further to go. And so I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to be fair and generous to Mateta here, because I think if he was maybe 21 at, no disrespect to Crystal Palace, a big six club, would everyone be talking about like, oh my god, he's amazing, he's incredible, the things that he's doing. I think he's a very, very good Premier League striker. I think Crystal Palace are very lucky to have him. I think the question marks for me are whether he's going to replicate that again this season. I think injuries have always been, a little niggling thing in the back of your head about can he stay fit for a whole season. I think if he can get past that and, if Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace can pick up their form this season, I think maybe he could be a really good striker for them. And going forward, is he going to be in that top 8 for me in this tier list? I'm not sure. He's close, but I do think maybe probably for now, I'm going to leave him where he is in that bracket of 9th to 12th. And we'll come back to it because I definitely don't think he's in danger of going down. If anything, he's probably, maybe probably going to get a chance of going up into that 5 to 8 bracket. But I'm just not sure yet. I need to probably see how the rest of the tier list unfolds. And after maybe Mateta being a bit tricky, let's go for a simple one. Someone who I think we can't argue about too much. And let's go for Alexander Isak. Let's get him out the way because I think behind Erling Haaland, who's obviously number 1, I think Isak is, very close, maybe 2 or 3, as we'll discuss later. But I think he's definitely in that bracket of 2 to 4. And yeah, he hasn't started this season in amazing form, only 1 goal and 1 assist in all competitions. But I do think about it, and you think of last season, how phenomenal he was for that Newcastle side. 25 goals and 2 assists in all competitions. And you just think about it and think, he's only 25 years old. He's only been in the league for 18 months now. He is absolutely phenomenal, and for me, I think that he's hands down one of the best strikers behind Erling Haaland. I'm so surprised that no club looked at him in the summer and thought, yeah, do you know what, he might be worth 100 million, but we could really use him. He is that talented that I think he can go into a lot of sides in world football and improve them. I think there are so many sides who would have been better with Isak in them, and I'm surprised that he's actually still at Newcastle. But I think for Newcastle, I think you should be absolutely delighted that he's still at your club. I think he's got absolutely everything. He's even got that Thierry Henry vibe about him, the way he plays, playing centrally, but also he can pull out slightly to the left, and he's got a lovely right foot as well. For me, Alexander Isak has absolutely everything, and for me, hands down, he has to be in that bracket of 2 to 4 of strikers behind Erling Haaland. And next up, let's go for Yoane Wissa at Brentford, who for me, I love him. I think he's such an underrated forward. And I think with Ivan Toney being out for a suspension at the early part of last season, and then when he did come into the team not being in great form in the second half of last season, I think it really highlighted to everyone that, Yoane Wissa, when he got games, he is a really good Premier League striker who can compete with likes of Ivan Toney and the new signing Igor Thiago, who isn't in the squad until December because he's injured. And when you do look at it, I do think that Wissa and Mbeumo are such a dangerous front too. I think that together they will get a lot of goals for Brentford, and Brentford this season I think will do absolutely fine. I think Wissa is a big part of that. I think he's already got 3 goals and 1 assist so far this season, 12 goals and 3 assists in all last season. And I do expect his numbers to increase on last year. I think that, he's such an underrated player, but I think now he's getting to that period where I think everyone acknowledges that he's an underrated player, so he's now probably becoming either properly rated or a little bit overrated as well. But I just think that he's such a talented player, and in terms of this tier list, I definitely think that he's looking at either the middle or somewhere higher than that. And it wasn't done intentionally, but I'm probably going to leave him where he is, just behind Jean-Philippe Mateta. Why is he not ahead of Mateta? It's a close one, if I'm being honest, but I just think that Mateta did so well for Crystal Palace last year, and Wissa really came out of nowhere and surprised me, that I think that for now, I think the Mateta is just going to be there ahead of Wissa. But I tell you what, if maybe Brentford had a player like Eberechi creating the amount of chances that he does for Mateta, maybe Wissa would have more goals. Maybe my opinion would change slightly. but he's not, as he's at Crystal Palace and he's providing assists and goals for Mateta. So I'm going to leave them that in that order for now. Next, let's go for Danny Welbeck. That guy Welbs, he's still going and still doing it in the Premier League at a very high level. And because he's been around for so long, you forget the fact that he's still only 33 years of age. You probably think that, he's in his late 30s, maybe getting on, maybe looking at retirement soon. But clearly he's the modern professional, can probably still keep going for a couple more years yet. I think that if you're a fan of Man United, Arsenal and Brighton, you look at him and you're so thankful for him because managers clearly love him. They continuously keep playing him. And I think that under Fabian Hurlitzer, he's the perfect foil for all the other players behind him. I think, the wide players in Matoma, Minto, and Cisse, whoever else ends up playing. You've got João Pedro, who could probably start up front for Brighton. But Fabian Hurlitzer clearly prefers Danny Welbeck and was even pushing Pedro deeper, which in a position I think he can play, just to accommodate Welbeck. And I think that, managers absolutely love him. And then for a lot of teams, he's got to be playing. And I think that, what probably holds him down a little bit is his goal scoring attributes. He's been consistent over a period of time, but he's never been prolific. Last season, he got 7 goals and 1 assist. This season, though, he started the season in pretty good form. 3 goals, 1 assist for a 33-year-old. And I think it's one where we're looking at him and it gives me Barkley's-man kind of vibes, but in the modern day era. And I think about where he's going to go. I do think that his goal scoring maybe brings him down a tad, but I think in terms of work rate and everything else he does off the ball, I think he's absolutely fantastic. But right now, are you taking Welbeck over Wissa and Mateta? I don't think so. I think, he does his defensive work rate so well, but I think the others are more prolific going forward. So I then have to move him down. And the argument would be, would you want Dominic Calvert-Lewin over Welbeck? Again, it's such a tough one. I think maybe a fit Dominic Calvert-Lewin, only just probably. Do you take Welbeck over Antonio? I think at the moment, and it's so close, but you probably do. I mean, I love Mikel Antonio, and I love Danny Welbeck as well, but I just think that maybe Welbeck, is still sharp in front of goal, where I think Antonio has lost that little edge. Yeah, so I'm just going to go with Welbeck over Antonio there. Let's next go for Bournemouth striker, and that is, of course, Evan Nielsen. And if I'm being honest, I think he's a really, really good striker. He's only 24, and last season for Porto, he got 25 goals and 7 assists in all competitions, over 30 goal involvements. That is absolutely nothing to be snubbed at, even if it was in the Portuguese league, for a side who are always going to be up there in that league as well. In Porto, I think obviously club record signing for Bournemouth, trying to replace Dominic Solanke. He hasn't got any goals or assists just yet for Bournemouth, but I think he definitely has deserved it. He's got an XG of 2, so he's still just finding his feet. There were definitely some chances he could have taken so far this season, and he probably should have a couple of goals already. But it's such a tough one because we haven't seen too much of him in the Premier League. What I have seen of him in the Champions League, and especially in that double-headed tie in the Champions League against Arsenal, I thought I was really, really impressed with. He is such a dog. He works so hard, but he's also got an eye for goal as well. He looks like a super talented player, and I'm surprised that Bournemouth were able to pull off a player of his stature, and I thought maybe he should have been going for a bigger club. No disrespect to Bournemouth intended. So the fact that they've got him, I think, is a massive coup for them, and I think the goals will come for him, and I think they'll come in a bucket load as well. So I think for now, I'm going to go a little bit conservative. I'm going to put him in that 9 to 12 bracket. I am going to put him ahead of Mateta and Wissa, just because he's done it in the Champions League. He's got that experience, and over 30 goal moments is, absolutely amazing. Whether he's going to go in that 5 to 8 bracket, maybe. I think the only way he's going to move is he's going to go up one. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, I'm just going to leave him there. And when I make my final changes at the end, maybe I'll revisit that. Next up, let's go for Diogo Jota. And I'm going to put, almost gave it away, almost put him straight away where I thought he was going to be. But let me put him in the middle for now. And let's discuss. Because, you could maybe go for a Darwin Núñez. You could maybe go for a Cody Gakpo. However, I think Gakpo, under Arne Slot, is definitely going to be more of a left winger for Liverpool. I think maybe you could go Darwin Núñez. But I think from what we've seen so far, 4 starts out of the 5 in the Premier League, I do think that Jota is Arne Slot's preferred number 9. And I think, he's had his injury issues, but when he is fit, he is so lethal. I mean, there was a point last season as well where Liverpool fans were saying, that if there's a chance in the box and you want any player in your squad to take it, who do you want it to be? And most people were saying Diogo Jota over Mohamed Salah. Now, when you think about the world-class levels that Salah has achieved time and time again for the last almost a decade, you think about it, and that's a huge compliment to pay towards Diogo Jota. And I think this season, while, he's been good but not amazing. You know, he's got 3 goals and 1 assist in all competitions. Last season he got 15 goals and 4 assists, and when you consider the fact that he had niggling injuries throughout it, and he wasn't always the regular starter as well, I think that is a great achievement for him. And with regards to where I'm going to place him, of course he's going to be in the upper echelons of it. Is he going to be in the 5 to 8? Well, I'm looking at him and Rasmus Hojlund, and if I'm trying to say who do we want up front for a whole season fully fit, I think it is Diogo Jota. I think, you know, comfortably, I would, there we go. I would comfortably want Diogo Jota, I think, ahead of Rasmus Hojlund for now. That might change in a couple of years. Hojlund's so young. Do I want Jota maybe in that 2 to 4 bracket? Is he one of the best strikers in the league behind Erling Haaland? I think maybe. I think if he's fit for the entire season, I think that's what always puts him down in other people's mind, I think, because he's never fit for a whole season. So he never posts the numbers that everyone wants him to do. But if he were to be fit, I think easily you're looking at least 20 goals in the league, maybe 30 in all competitions. So for me, yeah, I'm going to move him up. I'm going to move him in that 2 to 4 bracket. I'm going to keep him behind, I think, Alexander Isak for now. Am I? Maybe I'll revisit that. Maybe I'll come back to it. But I think for now I'm going to keep Isak with his, you know, 25 goal moments for Newcastle, just ahead of Diogo Jota. But I think comfortably he has to be in that 2 to 4 bracket. Next up then is Jurgen Strand Larsen of Wolves. The Norwegian striker has only just joined this summer from Celta Vigo in Spain, where he got 13 goals and 3 assists in all competitions. And so far this season he's got 1 goal and 2 assists for Wolves. And I think it's one where Wolves as a whole have been, you know, not great at the beginning of this season. I think their tough start to the season really hasn't helped them. And I think their attack and play, while being okay so far, has definitely got improvement in it. I think obviously having no Pedro Neto, him being sold to Chelsea, and Matiskin now having to move from that central striker role to one of the positions either side of Strand Larsen hasn't definitely helped the link-up play up front. But I think that Strand Larsen, while he has played, I've been, you know, quietly impressed with him. I think that he definitely has an eye for goal, and he definitely has some good link-up play with the players around him. He holds the ball up really well. That's something that I've been quite impressed with him. And I think, you know, he is definitely a Premier League striker. He's definitely one that's going to score a few goals for Wolves. And that's the key word there, though. I think a few goals for Wolves. I don't think he's going to score loads. I think it is one where you maybe, you know, if he can get to double digits for goals, I think you'll probably be happy. So I can't really put him, you know, too high up in this tier list. It's probably going to be the lower ends of it, but I definitely don't think in that bottom tier. So I don't think he's going to be scoring as many goals as the players alongside in this middle tier. So I've got to drop him down. And for me, he looks pretty comfortable in that bottom, in that, you know, middle tier from 13 to 16. I do think, though, that from what I've seen, I've been impressed with him, you know, and maybe because he's a new player to the Premier League and I'm not used to him. But I'm going to put him just at the front of the 3 other strikers ahead of him in terms of Calvert-Lewin, Welbeck and Antonio. I think, again, maybe that's one that could move a little bit further up. But I think for now, I need to see a little bit more from him. If he got maybe a couple more goals that, you know, that he could have moved up into that middle tier. But I think 13 to 16 for now suits him, and I think he is ahead of those other strikers. Next, let's go for Dominic Solanke, and I think this is quite an easy one. He's definitely looking at being in those top 2 tiers. And he had a phenomenal season last year, 19 goals and 3 assists for Bournemouth, and then in all competitions, that's 21 goals and 4 assists, 25 goal involvements for Bournemouth. And I think that was really, really impressive. I think we all had to stand up and take notice of Dominic Solanke, who had bounced around a couple of Premier League clubs and, you know, were with Bournemouth in the Championship as well. But I think now it's, you know, he's finally entering that stage now where he's the main man, and he got the move to Spurs. And so far this season, 2 goals and 1 assist. I think, you know, things are looking on the up for him. I think, you know, in England call up soon and maybe, you know, competing to be that number 2 striker, behind Harry Kane is definitely in his future as well. And so for me, I think, you know, Dominic Solanke has to be in the, you know, top 2 tiers for me in this list. And I'm going to put him in that 5 to 8 tier list for now, just because I think that the fact that was just, you know, one amazing season for me shows that, you know, if he had maybe a consistency to it, maybe he had multiple seasons, maybe he got 30 goal involvements, he could potentially be in that 2 to 4 bracket. But for now, I'm going to leave him in 5 to 8. And is he going to go ahead of Rasmus Hojlund? Yeah, he is for me going to go ahead of Rasmus Hojlund. I think he's got absolutely everything to his game, which I think Rasmus Hojlund has as well. But I think his link-up play is just a little bit better as well than Hojlund, who I think is still very young, like I've said multiple times in this video. But I think Solanke has everything. He just needs to do everything, but more of it as well. Get more goals, get more assists. And I think in the Tottenham side, where he's going to create so many chances, it's perfect for him. Next up, Liam Delap, who plays for Ipswich Town, and I'm really struggling with this one. And the reason why I'm struggling with this is because he's still a very young striker, only 21 years of age. His first season, being in the Premier League, and he's with a newly promoted side in Ipswich. So, it's going to be tough for him. And he's not necessarily going to get loads of goals. But I think Ipswich, if they were to in the Premier League, are relying on him to get a lot of goals. Maybe they're probably, expecting him to do well in the Championship if they go down next year. But I think there's so much pressure on him, and I can see the potential. I can see that he's going to be a good striker one day in the Premier League or in the top division across Europe. But I think right here, right now, does he have the numbers to back it up? Last season for Hull City, only 8 goals and 2 assists. That was impressive. I think his all-round game is really, really good. But I think this season, only 1 goal so far. Yes, it was a fantastic, solo goal against Fulham, but maybe Bernd Leno could have done a little bit better in trying to save it. I'm going to have to put him a bit low down, but that's based on where he is right now. I think the potential is really, really high. So I think I am, unfortunately. I don't think I can put him in that tier. So I think all those other strikers, Premier League proven, I do think I'm going to have to put him in this tier. And of course, I will put him ahead of Adam Armstrong. Which, am I going to put him ahead of Adam Armstrong? Because, 24 goals and 13 assists in the Championship is nothing to laugh about. But I think I've got it so set in my mind that Adam Armstrong in the Premier League won't work, that I think that Liam Delap is more likely to work, get more goals, get more assists. Yeah, so that's a weird... Yeah, I am going to put Liam Delap ahead of Adam Armstrong, even though Armstrong's got more goals and assists in the Championship. But I think in the Premier League, Delap will probably get, I think, maximum 15 goal returns, goals and assists. I don't think he's going to get any more than that. I think it would need him to, but I feel so bad because he is a wonderfully talented player and he is going to have a bright future. But right now, I think you'd probably want Antonio, Welbeck, Calvert-Lewin, Sandler. I think you want all of them ahead of him for now. Next, let's talk about Kai Havertz at Arsenal, because I really like Kai Havertz as a footballer. I think that, when he signed from Chelsea, a lot of people will look at him like, oh, that's a bit of a flop. Why are you spending so much money on him? But I think he's shown that, in a multiple positions up front, in that number 8 position on the left-hand side for Arsenal, he is a really, really talented player, and he just needs the right system and the right players around him. Last season, he got 14 goals and 7 assists in all competitions, and I think now, going forward, he's definitely going to be that starting striker for Arsenal. I think, with injuries to Odegaard, Declan Rice suspended against Manchester City, Arteta had a choice to make, and, I don't think it was as easy as maybe some people are playing it off as. He could have played Havertz in one of those midfield positions, and he could have put in Gabriel Jesus. Now, I think that probably showed to everyone, I think, watching, and me included, that, Havertz is the number 9 for Arsenal. He is the player who, despite the fact that he got no successful pass in that game against Man City, which is something that people have, chucked at him. I've seen Jamie Carragher do that especially. And yes, it's an interesting stat, but his involvement in that game, his requirement, his job wasn't to score goals. If bear with me on that, I know the striker should be scoring goals, but in that one specific game, it was to, be a nuisance and get Arsenal as high up as possible and up the pitch, and then in the second half it was just to defend. So I think that, he will score goals. He's already got 3 goals and 1 assist in all competitions so far this season. I think he is Arsenal's number 9, and what I really want to see from him is, I want to see him score more goals from open play. I think that, yes, you got Saka, Trossard, Jesus, Martinelli, Odegaard when he's fit, but I want to see Havertz, become prolific. And I think he has that ability in him as well, because when he was at Leverkusen and in his early years at Chelsea, he was really, really phenomenal. So yeah, for me, he can't be in that top tier because he doesn't score enough goals, but he can absolutely, definitely be in the tier just below. Is he better than Rasmus Hojlund and Dominic Solanke? Oh God. He is the best defender and best player in terms of defending from the front out of those 3. And it depends what you want from your striker. I think for me, the fact that I probably expect Hojlund and Solanke to score more goals than Havertz this season. And I know there's more to football than just scoring goals and assists, especially for strikers nowadays in the modern era. But I think I am going to put Solanke and Hojlund ahead of him. Next, I suppose we should probably talk about the big man, and of course that is Chris Wood. When he initially signed from Newcastle, I was thinking, oh my God, Nottingham Forest, what are you doing? This is an awful sign, especially for the fee that you were going to pay for him. And I think it's fair to say that he's probably proved me and probably a lot of other people wrong as well. 15 goals and 1 assist last season. And I think, the turning point for him was definitely when Nuno Espirito Santo joined the club and when Steve Cooper left. He was the number one striker for him. And I think now, it's quite comfortably, Chris Wood is the starting striker and Taiwo Awoniyi is the backup to him. I think so far this season, 3 goals. I think he's been absolutely phenomenal for Forest. I think he was instrumental in that 1-0 win against Liverpool at Anfield. And, he's been saving my FPL week after week, and I desperately needed him to do so. And then maybe, a little bit of recency bias on Chris Wood as well, which might make me want to put him up a little bit higher up in the list. But I tell you what, I love Chris Wood. I really, really do. And so I'm going to leave him where he is. I'm going to leave him above Strand Larsen. I maybe was thinking of putting him down a tier, but no, I'm going to leave him in that middle tier. And I'm going to keep him there for now. Right, let's talk about Nicolas Jackson next. Who, he's a difficult one to place. Because I actually quite like Jackson. I think if he's not playing for your club, and he can be infuriating on a week-to-week basis, and you just see him every now and then I think to yourself, you look and you map the progression, and you think, do you know what? He's a striker who last season massively underperformed his XG, but he still managed to get, 17 goals and 5 assists in all competitions. So far this season, he's overperforming XG. So, it's balancing out a little bit. 4 goals and 2 assists this season. And it's one where I was thinking that Chelsea, if they wanted to compete for the top 4, for, the Premier League, maybe get, do well in the Champions League and European competitions, that's their aspirations, they need to maybe upgrade on Jackson. But I think what we've seen is, with Chelsea not buying that striker to replace him, I think we've seen, that he is a striker who's got a lot of potential, still very young at 22 years of age. Last season was his first year in English football after a very inexperienced time at Villarreal. He only recently just broke on the scene before Chelsea decided to buy him, and it's one where he is getting better and better, and everything in his game is still quite raw. And I think you could probably compare him to someone like Darwin Núñez a lot, but I think the thing that's going to be the difference is that Nicolas Jackson is going to get game time. He's going to be starting week in, week out. And I actually really like the look of him and Chelsea as a whole so far this season. And it's started to become really difficult now because you're just comparing minute details in players' games to try and determine where they're going to go. I think he is... there we go. He's definitely in the same level as Evan Nielsen, and I know that's Evan Nielsen hasn't scored a goal in the Premier League yet, but in terms of what he did at Porto, that cannot be ignored. 30 goal involvements. And you think about Nicolas Jackson, where is he going to be where is he right now? Oh, it feels harsh on Evan Nielsen because I do like him and I think he will do well, but I think Jackson has to be in that tier above. Is he then competing with Kai Havertz? Oh, God. Kai Havertz, 14 goals, 7 assists last season in all competitions. Nicolas Jackson, he got more goal involvements, but it's not everything. It's not everything. I am going to leave it as it is for now. I think that Kai Havertz, as a total footballer, is much better than Jackson. I don't think you can debate that. As a goal scorer, Jackson's probably better. But I think for all-round game and personal preference, I'm going to go for Kai Havertz for now. It feels harsh, but that could easily change in the coming weeks or months. And then we come to another player who I really, really like, Rodrigo Muniz. And in the second half of last season, I don't think anyone could have predicted how well he did. 10 goals and 1 assist for Fulham in that back end of last season. And I think he was a revelation for Fulham and exactly what they needed at that time. This season, you may be expecting him to kick on a little bit. He hasn't had the best of starts, only 1 assist so far. And I think in the last 2 games, Raul Jimenez has started and done really well for Fulham. But I think in terms of who the number 9 is going for Fulham, it's definitely Muniz. Jimenez is 33 years of age. 10 years he's got on Jimenez. So I think Muniz is definitely the striker for Fulham for now and in the future. I do think that he's maybe struggling just a little bit with form, but that can happen with young strikers, and I'm really impressed with him. I think he's got everything to his game. I don't think he's got that experience just yet, but that'll come, with playing more games in the Premier League, and I think which he will get. But if you're talking about right now and today, I do think that I'm probably taking those other four strikers ahead of him in that tier. So I think I do have to drop him down. And I think he's going to be in the top end of that tier. I am going to take him ahead of the others, which then means then for between 13 to 16, I need to drop one down because none of them are going up. And I think, am I doing it? Yeah. I think I'm going to have to drop Mikel Antonio down because just he's on the end of that tier list, and I think that I'll probably take all the others ahead of him. And it feels harsh because he's been such a stalwart in the Premier League for so long now and doing a fantastic job for West Ham. But I think today I'm taking all the strikers ahead of him. So yeah, Muniz as well, 13th place for now. And I say for now because the next striker who's up is Jamie Vardy, who is going to be, I think, in and around those brackets as well. And for me, undoubtedly, he has to be a Leicester legend and probably a Premier League icon as well. Maybe a legend because, you know, what he did with Leicester City, winning the Premier League, that was so iconic, that was so huge. I think that alone, he deserves incredible recognition. But not only that, he then decided to stay with Leicester, rejected a move to Arsenal, and when Leicester got relegated, he went down to the Championship. He scored 20 goals for Leicester, he's the top goal scorer, and now he's coming up. And at the age of 37, he needed to be upgraded on in the summer, is my honest opinion, but they haven't, and that's the situation that is the case at Leicester at the moment. So, so far this season, in the 5 games, he's got 2 goals. He needs help, he needs support, but he's doing his very best. But the big question is, how good is his best? And for me, I don't think he's going to be that 9 to 12 tier. I think he's going to drop down. I think I am going to take Rodrigo Muniz, if I can move him, ahead of Jamie Vardy. From what I've seen so far this season, what I've seen in previous years, I think I am going to take Strand Larsen and Dominic Calvert-Lewin ahead of Vardy. Which then means between him and Welbeck, which player am I moving down? I think, unfortunately, I mean, he is an icon and I love him, but it is going to have to be Jamie Vardy, and I'm going to put him ahead of Mikel Antonio, maybe because, with the games that he's going to have for Leicester and the game time and the minutes, that maybe we'll see more of him, which Mikel Antonio probably may not have, which then brings us onto our final forward, which, if you haven't realised, it is Aston Villa, that's the club, and it is Ollie Watkins. And I think this is quite easy. He's going to go in that top tier. And a couple of you may be thinking, where on earth is John Duran? Well, yes, he's doing really well so far this season. 5 goals, the best goals per minute ratio of any Premier League striker ever. He scored a minimum of 5 goals. But I do just think that, yeah, he's doing really, really well. But Ollie Watkins, he is a world-class striker. I mean, 27 goals and 13 assists last season, 40 goal involvements. Those numbers, were up there with the likes of Mbappe, Haaland, Harry Kane. And I think, from a player who's worked his way through the divisions, got to the position where he is playing for Champions League football with Aston Villa, that many goals cannot be understated how crucial that is for Villa as well. So, yeah, undoubtedly, he is, for me, a world-class striker. 3 goals and 2 assists so far for Aston Villa in all competitions. I think he has to be in the top tier. And while John Duran is doing really well, I think if he were to start week in, week out, I'm not sure he would get the same numbers that Watkins does. Plus everything he does off the ball. Unai Emery loves him. Aston Villa fans love him, and so do I as well. And he has to be in this top tier. But the only question is, where on this tier does he go? And it's really, really tough because I've just given it the big build-up, saying he's got all the numbers. And if I'm being honest, him or Diogo Jota, if Watkins was playing for Liverpool, if Jota was playing for Villa, I think they both could do a very similar job, get very similar numbers. Would Jota match Watkins? Do you know what? I'm going to give Watkins this one over Jota. Is Watkins better than Isak? It's a really, really tough one. Because Watkins did have European competition last season as well. They're both world-class players, Isak and Watkins. I think for me, and my own personal preference, what am I about to say? I don't even know what I'm about to say. I think that the best Premier League striker behind Erling Haaland is... I think for now it is Ollie Watkins. Am I going with that? I am going with that. I think Ollie Watkins didn't have penalties last season as well. Now that Douglas Luiz is gone, I don't think I've seen Villa have a penalty, but if Watkins was to be on penalties as well, I think his numbers would increase even further. I think that, he is a world-class striker, and I think Isak is a world-class player, but if he was not a Newcastle, no respect Newcastle fans, then maybe he would be that world-class player, get the numbers as well, and I think it is so close between them, and I'm sorry, but I'm just personal preference. It might be a little bit of English bias, but I'm going to go for Ollie Watkins, and I absolutely love him. But in terms of final changes, is there anyone that I'm going to move? Is there anyone that I think deserves to be further up? Anyone who I think deserves to be further down? I actually think that in terms of the top row, 2 to 4, I'm quite happy. I think in terms of 5 to 8, it is Hojlund, Havertz, Jackson. I can move either of them, any of them in any order, and I still probably wouldn't make my mind up. So I'm going to leave them as it is because that was my initial thought. I feel harsh on Evan Nielsen. I think that, his numbers for Porto were fantastic. But I think for now, I think all this players ahead of him, and I need to see how he does in the Premier League. I think I'm happy with 13 and 14 with Muniz and Strand Larsen. It is honestly 15 to 20. Apart from Adam Armstrong, I'm sorry, Southampton fans, Adam Armstrong is dead last for me. But I think I could be swayed to move any of those other players. But I'm going to leave them as they are for now. So there you have it. There is my tier list, the whole 2 to 20. Obviously, if you didn't catch the beginning, because I think Erling Haaland is undoubtedly the number 1 striker in the Premier League. That's where I think that your club striker should be in terms of everyone else. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Who would you move? Who would you keep the same? Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content so I know to make some more. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.